I wanted to share my recent shoot for a client. I know it's been a while since I last posted a video. Life's been full. My second child had a health situation. We welcomed our third baby. And my wife and I sat down to rework the direction of our business. We've decided to stop focusing on retainer clients. Honestly, they weren't profitable for us. So now we're prioritizing project-based work. I'll talk more about that in another video, but today's video isn't about that. I wanted to share a behind-the-scenes look at a recent speaker reel shoot. I love this type of shoot. It's easy for me to focus on just one speaker. I've covered full-day events before, but this one was different. Just one client and we wrapped in under 3 hours. So first, let's talk about audio. My client was the second speaker in the morning, and we arrived before the event started. I could have hooked my Zoom F3 to the AV team's soundboard, but I choose not to. Unplugging it later can be tricky. And in my experience, AV techs usually prefer to wait until the break or after the talk to disconnect my Zoom F3, which is totally understandable. I didn't want to bother them mid-event. So instead, I used the Sennheiser AVX, which operates at 1.9 GHz, less prone to interference compared to my Holy Land Lark Mark II, which uses a 2.4 GHz. If you're using a lav mic on 2.4 GHz and the AV is using 1.2, either handheld or lav mic, there is a risk of feedback. Either to the room speakers, that will be embarrassing, or it will be picked up by my camera. That will be useless. Some AV teams even ask what lav mic am I using to check for potential interference. There were over 1,000 women in this conference, because this is a women conference. When my client took the stage, a few minutes into her talk, the audio started dropping. Here's a sample.
Where the hell am I? Is this a scene at a Grays and like a joke? And as and I'm trying to stutter out the words like...
Good thing I had a backup. I used a Tascam DR10L placed in front of the AV speaker on stage.
Walks into the room and says, Jessica, Ronnie, I'm really, really sorry, but we believe your son has spinal muscular atrophy. There is no treatment, there is no cure, and we actually don't think that your son will make his first birthday.
I'm not entirely sure why the AVX had dropouts. Maybe it was the distance, maybe the frequency interference. We were in downtown with tons of devices, or maybe it's just old. I've had it since 2018. Either way, always have a backup. I got this technique for capturing audio during weddings by placing a mic in front of a room speaker. Some Catholic priests either prefer not to be mic'd up, which I completely respect, or they show up right before the ceremony starts, leaving no time to mic them at all. So instead of stressing about it, I just placed a mic in front of the room speaker. If I can't reach it, I mount it on the light stand. If the speaker is on the ground, I position the mic slightly above it. Make sure to use a mic that records internally. Avoid using one with a receiver. It can cause feedback. And never tape your mic directly onto the speaker, even if your tape doesn't leave residue. It's still a big no. AV teams and DJ invest in expensive gear, and taping something to their equipment is a fast way to lose trust. This is a people-first business. AV teams and DJs can be great referral partners, so it pays to be respectful. You can ask the AV team for permission to place your mic in front of the speaker, but personally, I don't always do that, mainly because I'm not plugging anything in and I'd rather not to get a long explanation. Back to the event. Also, I had a shotgun mic on a side angle camera positioned near the AV speaker, but the Tascam audio ended up sounding way better. Now let's talk about the camera setup. I used 3 cameras, 2 Sony FX3 and 1 Sony FX30. I love both. The FX3 is a beast in low light, while the FX30 can struggle a bit, but I like the FX30's 24 megapixel sensor. Gives me room to crop. The FX3 only has 10 megapixels. For this event, I used the FX30 as my main camera in the middle, at the very back of the room. Since it's a crop sensor, my Sony 200mm lens becomes a 300mm. I'm saving up for the Sony 200 to 600mm, which I usually rent when I'm covering the entire event. But for this shoot, where I was focused on one speaker, I used the Sony 70 to 200 f4 macro. My second shooter monitored the main cam and the Sennheiser AVX audio. My second camera, a Sony FX3 with Tamron 70-180, it was placed on the left side of the stage. Normally, I position this camera on the right side because most people's good side is the left. But in this case, there was a podium that might have blocked my client, so I switched sides. This camera was unmanned for a few minutes while I captured B-rolls, which brings me to my third camera, and it is another FX3 with Sony 28-70 f2, which was on the gimbal for B-rolls. I got different angles and focal lengths. The room was big, so it took me maybe 10 minutes to get all the B-rolls I needed, and then I returned to the side camera to control it. I also captured B-rolls of her before she went on stage and again during lunch. During these moments, I used the Holy Land Lark Mark II for quick sound bites. I love how small it is. I can place it almost anywhere thanks to the magnets. Ideally, I should have hidden it better, but it still worked great. The sound bites were incredible. She was confident and vulnerable in front of the camera.
Just like, oh, how are you? Thank you for doing your talk. Girl, I'm sorry.
Okay, let's touch on lighting. As soon as we arrived at the venue, I checked if they had floodlights. I saw the setup, they weren't on yet, so I knew we have enough light. So I used the FX30 from the back of the room with the Sony 70-200mm. If there weren't any floodlights and we had to rely on the room lighting, I would have asked my second shooter to move closer and use the Sony FX3, even if it meant possibly blocking someone. Now, here's the final video.
Benjamin Franklin talks about the 2 guarantees in life, death and taxes. The thing that I think Ben forgets to talk about as well, though, is the hard things. Many of you in this room are walking through today, like your own diagnosis, or maybe your best friends or your mom's or your dad's.
I just said to somebody, because my sister died not that long ago, and I was like, it was, hang on.
I mean, the hurt and the pain don't go away, which is the hard part. And like, I think for me, it's always like the playing out. I wish I had this moment with them. Like, I wish she was here. And so you play at the moments where you're just like, oh, like, why does it have to be this way? Why aren't they here?
And on August 5th, 2016, Dr. Jean Ma, a pediatric neurologist, walks into the room and says, Jessica, Ronnie, I'm really, really sorry, but we believe your son has spinal muscular atrophy. There is no treatment, there is no cure, and we actually don't think that your son will make his first birthday.
Oh, how are you? Thank you for doing your talk. Girl, I'm sorry.
And so on November 22nd at Rotary Flames House, our son Lewiston James Olstad passed away. He danced up to heaven. I got to hold him in my arms. He was surrounded with love. We had amazing doctors and nurses who walked us through that. And you know, one of the most impactful moments of that day for me was that as we were finishing our journey with Lewiston at the house and taking him to the funeral home, all the team did was just stand there. They stood there. It was like a salute to a soldier. They didn't have to say anything. They didn't have to physically do anything. In the moments of heart, sometimes it's not about saying the right thing or doing the right thing. It's just about being there. Because here's the thing, my son taught me some incredible lessons that have changed my life to the core. And as crazy as it is, I know that my life has worked out exactly how it's meant to. It didn't go as I planned or how I dreamed it to be, but it's gone exactly as how I know it's meant to be.
And my mom always said, it's like, Mom, we have to get the miracle that we're praying for. And my mom said, what if the miracle is long after he passes? And I believe that like, there's all these little small miracles that are happening, so.
We come up against what would be Lewiston's first birthday, May 25th, 2017, and friends go, what do you want to do? And I said, I just don't want to have a pity party. I need a tub of Ben & Jerry's. I want to get back to the hospital. The team, the equipment, the staff, it was so amazing. And so friends rallied together. We do silent auction, live auction. I tell my husband a week before and said, honey, you're in the live auction. He goes, okay, great. I said, you're also wearing a Speedo. Because we could have had a pity party on one of the hardest days, but we chose to have another epic dance party. I throw my husband in a Speedo every single year, and we've raised more than $3 million to pour back into our local hospital and the SMA community.